As dreamy as it may sound to live happily ever after with your knight in shining armor, sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And when the clock strikes midnight, what are your options? How do you gain financial stability and wellness on the other side of divorce? Today, I'm talking to Rhonda Noordyk, a certified divorce financial analyst, about some of her best advice for women navigating divorce. So if you're considering divorce or going through one at the moment, this is one video you absolutely can't miss. Stay tuned for our interview, and as always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video if you found it helpful. All right, today we are here with Rhonda, and I'm so excited for this conversation. So before we begin, Rhonda, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do? What exactly is a certified divorce financial analyst, and how do you help women specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for having me. So a certified divorce financial analyst is really somebody who is trained to be able to help women navigate through, or people, I guess you could say, to navigate through the financial aspects of the divorce process. I actually started my company back in 2014. And prior to that, I had been in the financial space as a financial advisor with my husband. We ran a registered investment advisory firm. And I always had a passion for helping women. We would do, women's events and have standing room only live events, Q&A, tons, maybe not tons, some wine. And just really found my niche in wanting to be able to help educate and empower women. So in 2014, when I left, I wanted to create a space that was designed, intended, set aside specifically for women, a safe space where they could come, learn about money, and navigate through the hard things in life. And so my company only works with women. One of the things that I decided early on was that I was actually not going to offer investment advice or insurance advice or sales as part of my process. I wanted to be able to do coaching and education and analysis independent of financial product sales. So started my company, and at the time there were very few people in this space. So I built my business from the ground up and developed all the processes and all the systems and all the things. But I knew from very early on what women were looking for. And most of the certified divorce financial analysts only do about 10 cases a year. I do hundreds of cases a year. I've spent over 17,000 hours working exclusively with people in the space, and we've moved $20 million into the hands of women that otherwise would be left at the table.
Wow, that's incredible.
So yes.
Just to recap, you were working in more of the traditional financial space, but you would see over and over again women come to you as they were going through divorce and realize this was a big part in their life a moment when they need a lot of help. And
That's right.
You kind of pivoted to create this center for helping women with their finances, but really specifically as they go through divorce.
Correct.
Amazing. Cool. So let's put you in the advice giving position. A woman is considering divorce or just starting the divorce process, or maybe even just, thinking about it. What are some of the key things that she should do? And what should she know about to financially protect herself? And you can base this on some of the mistakes you've seen or things people can be doing that they might not think of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that we as women tend to do, right, which is what makes us so amazing and yet also can be challenging at the same time, and that is we want to believe the best in people. So we turn and look away of things that maybe should be red flags, right? So the first thing I would say is be prepared. Watch for things to come through the mail. Watch for statements. Watch for emails. I've had clients where they're like, Rhonda, I found all kinds of information in the recycling bin. Or, I saw the tax return come in. Or, we refinanced the mortgage and I have all these documents, and they start looking through stuff and they start seeing clues. And I think, we also have to be ready to know that when we see those clues, we're also probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable because we might be seeing information that we're seeing for the first time. But that's one of the things that I think is really easy. And I always say women make really good private investigators when they start to keep their eyes open and look for things. And in fact, I saw a meme once that said, don't underestimate women's ability to find shit out. And I was like, and exactly that.
Mhm.
A couple other practical things, Britt. I mean, they can
Yeah.
get a credit card in their own name.
Mhm. Start
They
building their own
can,
credit.
that's right, which, back in the early, I guess it was actually late 70s was when women could finally start to get a loan without having a cosigner, right? Like
Yep.
that's
Yep.
craziness. So we can get credit cards. We can set up our own bank accounts. And just to kind of start going through some of those things that start to build some autonomy. I've also had clients who start just setting aside cash. They'll go to the bank or they'll go to the grocery store and they'll buy groceries and they'll hit the button that says $20 and they put it in their pocket and they take it home and they start putting it away. I've also had some clients who start loading up on things like tampons and toilet paper and paper towel, and they keep it somewhere
Hmm.
off site so that they know that if they ended up having to leave, they've got some of those essential things in order.
Any other, those are super practical day-to-day things. Anything bigger that they should keep in mind as they're, potentially going into a legal process with their partner? Information they should find out or know going in.
Yeah. So, I mean, early on in the process, we always encourage people to start gathering and organizing documents. So, statements, information. I would say, I mean, that's really kind of the key thing in the beginning. Until you actually start the process, it can be a little more challenging to get access to information.
Mhm.
So, it's making sure you've got the right team of people from the very beginning. And
Mhm.
making sure that you're in the right process for divorce from the very beginning. So, as far as like the big picture stuff, I mean, again, for the process of divorce, I would say the main thing is very early on, it's gathering and organizing as much information as you possibly can, which sounds kind of administrative and sounds kind of simple, but it's not until we get a little bit further down the path that we really can dive into some of the details that are going to help them answer all of those questions. I know that your organization is big on journaling, and one of the things that I encourage women that are contemplating or starting the process to do is I say, get all of the what if questions out of your mind and onto paper. What if I can't
Mhm.
keep the house? What if I can? What if my kids have
Mhm.
to, get it out? And my process for my clients is set up to basically walk them through each of those pieces, and we'll get all those questions answered, just not all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the what if exercises because there's so much that, it's going to come to you in the middle of the night as a question that's going to be a big stressor if you don't know what's going to happen. And so really capturing those and knowing that there will be an answer. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talk about something called the divorce gap. Can you explain what that is and what women can do about it?
Oh, yes. So the divorce gap, it is one of the side effects of divorce. And basically what it means is that, women, we have seen statistically speaking that the income for women goes down, right, as the divorce process is over and they're moving on, and the husband's income, ex-husband's income continues to go up.
Mhm.
So what we see is that what used to really feel like a little bit of an off balance, right, now the gap continues to get wider as they get on the other side of the process. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, being out of the workplace, re-entering the workplace. A lot of times the husbands are just further down the runway. They've got, more years of experience, more income that puts them in a better position after the divorce is over. So we typically I've seen the decrease in women's lifestyle or income. I've seen the range between 20 to 41%, 20 on the low end, 41 on the high end, while ex-husband's income tends to go up about 30%. So
Wow.
what used to be a gap now is continuing to widen. 27% of women find themselves in poverty after the divorce is over.
Mm. Oh, that is a heartbreaking statistic.
It's awful. And, part of the reason that my company exists is to help people, change. I want to change the stats on that.
Yeah.
And I know that it's possible
Mhm.
because we've been doing it. The thing that I think is important is for women to be able to have the knowledge, have the experience with some guidance that
Yeah.
helps build the confidence that they can stand in their power, ask for what it is they need, know what questions to be asking. And, if it wasn't possible, we wouldn't have been moving the needle, $20 million into the hands of
Absolutely.
women. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that furthers that gap that I know people know happens, but I don't know that they always have the dollars associated with it. And that is the cost of divorce itself. You
Mhm.
know, uncontested divorces range somewhere between $250, which would be basic paperwork, to $3,000, meaning maybe it's a short-term marriage, no kids, nothing super complicated. The contested cases can run somewhere between $15,000 to $30,000, and the high conflict, super complicated, really challenging cases can be six figures, multiple six figures worth of legal and expert fees. And so it's, you've now taken a situation where a woman's trying to get back into the workforce, and now she's also entering the workforce with debt.
Yeah.
And a significant amount of it sometimes.
Totally. Yeah. Let's go back to the one of the things you said in the beginning is the importance of getting as much information as they can. And at that point, there's, maybe a lot of things they're learning for the first time about the financial industry or financial terms that they're trying to figure out. What is the best way to kind of get familiar with all the terms that they need to know as they're going through the process?
Yeah, so I always kind of take the approach of a little bit less of the fire hose, right? So we take it in bite-sized pieces. I know that I try to use what I call these micro moments of education. There is a book that I will often recommend to people called Smart Women Finish Rich by David Bach, right? Love that book. Why? Because it's practical, great terminology, and it just helps us get our arms around concepts that maybe we have been avoiding. So I would say there's a couple things. One is the awareness of really wanting to dive into it. The education around the terminology, just asking questions. It does happen a little bit organically, I think, through the process because women are so overwhelmed. And then knowing that, hey, as you're going through this process, you're asking questions, you're leaning into these difficult conversations that ultimately at the end of the day, right, women do leave this process with my help, having a better understanding of not only an understanding of the finances, but a better confidence around their ability to make decisions. And I think then you and I have talked and it's like, okay, well, what's the next step after that? Well, the next step after that is making sure we're passing the baton to a more structured, opportunity for them to continue on the learning that they've had to kind of learn because of their situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay. So as they're going through the process, it's going to feel like a fire hose. Maybe there can be some comfort in knowing you don't have to know every term. You can take it bit by bit. It's really about, increasing your confidence. I heard you say, standing up for yourself and really learning kind of what ground you have to stand on as you go through this process. And then, as we talk about in the $1 Million Year, a lot of the work we do with women on the other side of divorce is putting your financial life back together.
Yeah.
It's getting, if you do have a limited income now, how does your lifestyle change and how can you make sure you're still saving money each month?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And and I think it's really, there was a prudential study that was done in 2000, a longitudinal study, and then they did it again in 2010. And while it seems like, well, Rhonda, that was, many years ago, 12 years ago. But what I found that was interesting between that 10-year period was not a whole lot had changed. And it wasn't focused on divorce. What they were looking at is women's confidence and their ability to make decisions around the finances. And I think a lot of times women are doing, they're paying the bills. Doesn't necessarily mean they have a budget, but they have some familiarity with the day-to-day stuff. The bigger picture is where things get a little bit fuzzy and women might not feel as confident. But it's the knowledge, plus the experience that gives them the confidence. And I know that in the past when we've run different educational workshops or we've done retreats, I gave them a list of terms, just some basic terms, right? Whether it's, what's a qualified plan? Oh, it's retirement assets. What's non-qualified? Well, that's cash that's invested, but you can, and just making it super simple. And I said, what? Nobody's expecting you to be able to recite the definition like we had to do, like my kids are doing now, definitions for things. But I want them to create that familiarity where they're like, you know what, Rhonda, I heard that term before. Great. Well, then let's look it up.
Right. So that when they hear qualified account, then they can say, okay, let me consult my piece of paper versus freezing in that moment.
That's right.
And not,
that's right. That's right. And, and I'm a big fan of, I think the divorce process in and of itself, there's a lot of terms that get thrown around. There's a lot of reports that people can run. And at the end of the day, women want to know, Rhonda, am I going to be okay? And I'm never going to be the one that says, yep, you're going to be just fine. Because, well, who defines what fine is? Not me, right? They do. And so that's where we kind of have a conversation around, what is that? What if you're getting X amount of dollars or you're getting, this piece of what does that mean for you?
Mhm.
And I think that's a really important point as women are kind of going through this, and give yourself a little grace. I mean, if you haven't handled the finances before, I always say women are smart. It's just we need the experience, we need a little knowledge, right? And women can make really good decisions when they have all of the information.
So let's touch on a couple more things before we close. A lot of women are coming out of financially abusive relationships. So moments where they were, given a specific allowance or, actually didn't have any insight into what's happening in the financial lives. And then they're, as they go through this process and coming out on the other side, having to become financially independent. What have you seen that you can offer as any sort of advice or support to people who have been in that situation of being shut out or financially abused? How can they basically recover from that experience?
I think we need to do a whole separate one just on this.
All right, noted.
But no, this is a tough one, Britt. I mean, of all the things we do, this is the thing that is the most challenging, frustrating, overwhelmed, keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
But I would say a couple things. One, we can control what we can control, which is our attitudes, our beliefs around money, and work on ourselves. That much we know we can do. We can take small steps. We can make sure that we've got the right team of people, the right financial team, the right legal team to be able to help us navigate through some of those pieces. You really need a team of advocates and take some small steps forward. There's no simple answer to that because it is really, really challenging. But I think, those are the things that, again, from a starting spot is really important. And then once we kind of get into the process, there are some legal things that we can do, that we can advocate for, that we can ask the attorneys to do that can be helpful. But we're kind of limited until we get their involvement.
You mentioned the idea of team a few times today. Can you specify who exactly someone should have on their team as they're going through this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited because the whole concept of a divorce team has gained a lot of energy over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So I always say there's three things. There's the legal, financial, and emotional, because we've got simultaneously three different divorces happening. We've got the separation of assets, we've got the legal piece, and then we've got all the emotions, right?
Yeah.
So I always say you need to have somebody in each of those categories. Sometimes with the emotional side, people will have a divorce coach, forward thinking, or a divorce, a marriage or family therapist, which is helping, kind of look back and look at some of those patterns. But having either a coach or a therapist, financial expert that specializes in divorce, and then, an attorney and not a generalist either, somebody who really is focused on, navigating through the divorce process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. I love that idea of the divorce team. Just remembering this is a big thing we talk about in $1 Million Year is, you don't have to be alone as you go through this process. You can have, your peers that are going through this process. You can have a team of support. There are resources out there so that it doesn't have to be so scary or lonely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't even have to cost more. When you've got the right people doing the right things in a real streamlined system, it can actually save money. So that's
exactly
all the better.
Yeah. So from what you've seen with your clients, divorce is obviously an emotional, difficult experience, sometimes expensive. What's the toughest financial aspect of going through a divorce, and how can women best navigate that?
There's a lot. I would say the first thing is kind of the day-to-day. I know women a lot of times will feel unsettled around while they're kind of in between. They've started the process, but they don't necessarily have income coming in yet, and they don't really know where they're headed. So that can be unsettling. But the toughest financial aspects, I would say, a lot of times are disclosure and transparency, knowing exactly what the assets are and where they are. And each state is supposed to be very forthcoming with that information, in theory. And the reality of what actually happens behind the scenes is not always quite that transparent.
Wow. Yeah.
So we end up having to include sometimes even like private investigators, forensic accountants to track down and follow the money to be able to navigate through that. So it can be really challenging. The second thing is their decision making. I think a lot of times women have shut off their ability to realize that they can actually make good decisions. So while it's not necessarily directly related to like dollars and cents financial, it is a really important part of the challenges that come along with the process. The court system, while again, not necessarily directly financial, it is an important part of the process that creates some barriers. The divorce process, the court system right now is not very nice to women. It's not a level playing field on the financial side at all. And I always say every single day, a team of people, the attorney, the therapist, and we are going to bat for our clients. And a lot of times our clients don't even see all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, but we're running up the down escalator every single day. But you know what? We're making a difference and it's working. It's just, it takes, the right strategy and team. And then I think the last piece is just knowing what questions to be asking. I think that's where we've seen on the back end where the numbers are plummeting because women are like, I didn't know I should be asking that. Nobody,
Yes.
So those are some of the things that I'm seeing that are indirectly related to the financials.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm totally inspired by the idea of that you have gotten $20 million back into the hands of women that wouldn't have otherwise been there. So that just gives me a lot of hope about closing the divorce gap and giving women the coaching and the support and the confidence that they need to go through this process and really get what they deserve out of it. So if people want to work with you or, learn more about handling finances and divorce or build their own team, where can they find you and what resources do you have to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is wfwcdivorce.com. I also have a podcast called Divorce Conversations for Women. And really, my question for them would be, what is your next best move? They can check out the next best move quiz on my website and take that and see what their next best move would be.
Perfect. Cool. Well, thank you for the work that you are doing. It's so fun to be in collaboration and know that there are other women out there supporting women through the tough phases of life.
Absolutely. So, thank you as well.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us today on our YouTube channel.
Thank you.
I'm so glad Rhonda was able to join us today, and I hope you learned something that you found helpful. If you're contemplating or going through divorce right now, please know that you are not alone. There are people and resources out there to help you thrive through this process. So if you're interested in learning more about Rhonda or working with her, I'll leave links in the description below to find out more. And as always, if you want support building back your financial life post-divorce, join us in the $1 Million Year, where we offer a step-by-step curriculum to really just take control of your financial situation again on your own. All right, thanks so much for joining us again. Don't forget to subscribe and like our video, and we'll see you in the next one. And if you had any questions that did not get answered, put them in the comments below and we will try to answer them in our next video. All right, good to see you.